Yeah, look, it's an increase of the aid program by stealth in this budget. It's a bit of a head scratcher. Like, why couldn't this government just outright say we are increasing the aid program in a time of profound crisis and need in our immediate region? It could be for two reasons. I mean, the aid program is at a low level. This is a minor increase, but it's still welcome and given the current climate. So it could be for two reasons. It could be to send a message to Timor-Leste and the Pacific that don't get your hopes up. This is not going to be forever. This is this is a short-term solution for an extreme case in the COVID-19 crisis. But it could also just as equally and more likely, in my opinion, be a political calculation on the government side that aid is just unpopular with their base. Increasing aid at a time of profound economic and fiscal crisis back home in Australia just wouldn't be palatable for the electorate. So, this is an increase by stealth. We're not increasing aid, but we are giving more abroad because of the profound need. So, yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher. And frankly, it says something a bit worrying about the Australian, the confidence of the Australian voter that, in such a time of profound crisis abroad, when we're not willing to see more money be spent to help them get through this crisis.
Profound too, because it is such a critical region for us, and the government has made a fuss about pivoting back towards the Pacific, making sure it is invested there, particularly as China becomes more assertive. Is this a miscalculation as to how much they still need our support?
Well, look, I don't want to underestimate the crisis happening in the Pacific and in Timor and indeed in broader Asia. The numbers coming out of the Pacific are incredibly stark. Fiji is looking like they're having a 23% economic contraction this year. Vanuatu expects to lose 40% of its formal workforce. Cook Islands expects a 60% economic contraction. These are really, really scary numbers. And these countries don't have the resources to bring to bear to help fight the economic crisis like we do in Australia. They can't borrow at 0.9%. Almost limitlessly like Australia can. This was a profound opportunity to help, and we have missed it. But it can be expected given the challenges we're facing at home. But China's also kind of let Australia off the hook here, because whilst we are the largest aid donor to the region, we have stepped up in a significant way. There is $1.4 billion going to the Pacific in our aid program. China hasn't done anything more this year. They could have seized the initiative. They could have done more to help the region, but they've really been missing in action. And that's kind of taken the pressure a bit off Australia to respond to that geopolitical argy-bargy. But, the region's not going anywhere. All of the challenges that the Pacific were facing before the COVID-19 crisis are going to come roaring back after it far worse. We're facing the potential of a lost decade in the Pacific at the moment. And, there was an opportunity to be ambitious here, and it seems like the government's not taken that on board.
Let's talk a little bit too about money allocated for cybersecurity, foreign interference, and also a boost to the military. These are all critical issues in this day and age, particularly again with the assertiveness from China, the constant hacking. Is it enough money to sort of fend off those issues?
Look, the number one objective of the Australian government is to protect Australians from, domestically and from abroad. So it's hard to argue against having a robust defence program, considering the climate we're seeing around us. And in many cases, like in cybersecurity, the government's taken very extreme steps to try and educate the Australian public about just how serious this challenge is. And often it feels like a David and Goliath struggle here. We do seem ill-equipped. And so it's hard to argue against all the new investments in this space. But I would argue that defence, intelligence, these budgets have been going gangbusters in recent years, and we do need to look more at the totality of our foreign policy initiatives. Defence and intelligence are just parts of a broad toolkit we have to try and influence and adapt the world around us. And whilst those two areas have been increasing very rapidly, our diplomatic efforts, our aid efforts have been flatlining. We need to look more at the totality here. We need to see what is the right balance. And maybe this is the right balance. Maybe this is what the government's confident in doing, but it seems like we're making very siloed decisions at the moment. And the consequence of that has been a diminished aid program, a diminished diplomatic footprint in the world.
Jonathan Pryke, always good to get your analysis. Thanks so much.
Thank you.